What's up, guys? My name is Kevin. This is Track Car Obsession. First off, I want to apologize for my voice. It's really cold outside and it seems like there's a cold going around and I might have caught a little bit of it. So today's going to be a quick how-to. I'd like to get some work done on the RX-8, but it's been anywhere between 12 and 15 degrees outside for the last couple of days, which has made it very difficult because a lot of things that I want to do are prepping the engine bay for the new engine, as well as prepping the interior for a roll cage, and then putting in the seats and the dash and everything. So a lot of that requires priming and painting, and it's just way too cold to be able to do that out there. So I've brought in the valve covers from the engine, and I'm going to show you how to just do a quick clean and how to put wrinkle paint on there. It's a little bit different than normal high gloss paint. So if the wrinkle paint is something that you've been interested in doing, stay tuned. Alright, so obviously the first step is to go ahead and get the valve covers off the car. So I've pulled these off, and then you want to take off every extra piece that's on the valve cover so it doesn't get in the way when you're cleaning or painting. Now, a pressed in crankcase ventilation tube like this, you're not going to be able to get that out, so you just leave that in and then we'll tape that up when we go to paint. And on mine I've got pretty new coil pack seals on there because the engine has such low mileage. I don't want to damage these, like bend them when I get them out, so they'll be fine when I clean them, and I'll just tape them up when we go to paint. So everything else is off. You don't want the valve cover gaskets on, but we're just going to use standard or fancy engine degreaser. I've just got the store brand here, and you spray it on, let it sit for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then use a brush to just agitate the degreaser on there. Now, because these are aluminum, you don't want to use anything really aggressive like stainless steel or brass, because what you'll do is score the aluminum. It's so soft you'll mess it up. Now, obviously, if you're painting over it, that's not a big deal, but it's not necessary. A good aggressive plastic brush will take care of everything that you need. So let's get to it. We're going to spray these down and let it soak. Alright, so we got both of our valve covers done. As you can see, they're not perfect, but I don't need them to be perfect. All we're trying to do is get rid of all the oil and grease that's on the valve covers so that the paint can adhere properly. Now, if you want, you can put primer on here. I haven't used primer in the past, and I haven't had issues with this wrinkle paint. I've just gone straight onto aluminum valve covers and haven't had an issue. But if you want to use primer, that's fine. This is a track car, so it's not a show car. I don't care if it's not perfect, and I can spend that $10 elsewhere. With this wrinkle paint, you're going to do basically 4 passes. The first pass we're going to do is going to be just a basic tack coat. I'm just going to spray it all over, and then we'll do vertical, and then horizontal, and then you're going to do diagonally. And after 3 coats with about 5 to 7 minutes in between, depending on the temperature that you're in, you should get nice even coats, and then that'll allow it to wrinkle properly, which happens as it cures, not while you're spraying. So let's go ahead and throw the tack coat on. Well, that's all 3 coats. Well, 4 coats including the original tack coat. What you want to do is make sure they're heavy coats, that they go on thick, otherwise it's not going to wrinkle properly. But let me give you a close-up right now. They're still drying. I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's still glossy and somewhat smooth, but as it dries, it will wrinkle. Now don't try to force it to dry too fast. It takes time. It will wrinkle as long as you've done heavy enough coats. As you can see, some areas are still smooth. That's because they're still curing, and as they cure, they will wrinkle. But hopefully it'll come out all right. I mean, we won't really know until tomorrow. You really need to let them sit for about 24 hours until you really know if it needs another coat. But the good thing is, if there's areas that aren't wrinkled as much as you'd like or as evenly as some of the other areas, what you can do is see where there's no wrinkles after it's cured for about 24 hours. Spray another coat, you know, thicken those areas, and then let that area wrinkle, and it should even out. Now obviously it's not going to give you the same result as if you do it all evenly and have it all wrinkled together, but you know, that can be very difficult, especially on valve covers that have, you know, all kinds of little nooks and crannies here. It does make it a little more difficult, but we'll take a look and see how they are tomorrow. All right, so here we are a few days later. Valve covers are done, and I've got them installed on the engine. What I'm going to show you is, I mean, they turned out okay, but they didn't turn out as well as they normally do for me, and I really think that's because of the really cold temperatures. I've had better results than this with much worse prep, but it was just so cold, and trying to keep them at a good temperature while letting them cure. And then when I came back after you know, the 3 main coats, there were a few spots, and I'll show you here. This is what happens when you don't have great coverage. You end up with these like smooth areas, and it's not you know, you don't get that wrinkle coat. And so that can either happen because it's too cold or you didn't get enough coverage. Usually it's because there's not enough coverage, and you want good coverage on every single one of your passes. So you know, like I said before, you want to go, you know, vertically, horizontally, and then do like a cross hatch, and you can even do a 4th coat cross hatching, you know, diagonally the other way. But most of it turned out pretty, you know, pretty wrinkled. But I had some of these smooth areas, so you know, I had to run off for vacation. I know, pity me, but so what I did is I basically rushed a final coat on those smooth areas, and I didn't have the camera with me when I did it, otherwise I would have filmed it. But what I ended up doing is, it was definitely too cold when I did this final coat, and I put it on extra thick to try and get, you know, good wrinkle, since it didn't wrinkle very well before. And so you know, like I said, I rushed it. I shouldn't have done that, because it basically ruined the finish, or at least to me. But you can kind of see here, there's some buildup where it didn't wrinkle evenly. You've got this line where there was just too much paint, and then same thing along this ridge, and then you can kind of see it over in this area here. Now once the intake manifold is on here, we'll not be able to see a lot of that, but you know, basically it didn't turn out perfect, but hopefully you can learn from my mistakes in this. Make sure the temperature is warm enough. You do good heavy coats on all of them, and then let it cure in good heat, and you should be fine. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Take it easy.